Okay, Anchor and producer Bolaji Akimale is still here on the wire for us. He's joining me to discuss a bit more about the first day of the Africa CEO Forum and the second day now underway at the venue. Bolaji, a good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for finding time to be here. We hope the weather there. What's the weather conditions? How many degrees centigrade are you running at the moment?
6 degrees.
6 degrees centigrade. That's a little bit pretty cold for you, coming from a pretty hot tropical Nigeria to Geneva. That's a bit of a transformation there for you. How are you coping with that?
Well, I have all my clothes very thick, my shawl, my winter coats, all in place to keep me warm. As a matter of fact, when we go to Paris, which is a transit point, the degree was 2 degrees centigrade. The weather was 2 degrees. So coming down to Geneva was actually a bit better at 6 degrees.
I could see in that report, I saw a lot of cup of coffee laying around on tables and with the CEOs having meetings, taking deals. Are you sharing part of that, keeping you warm?
Of course, a lot of discussions were made yesterday.
Yeah, because you're not going to have a chance to drink much of that when you come back. It's pretty hot down here in Nigeria.
Okay, there was a lot of deliberations yesterday. I talked about the family business issue, but today, let me just run through what will be discussed today, as a lot of meetings are ongoing. Right now, we have some deal rooms in operation, and right now we're talking about food and agri-industry, energy and information technology. Yesterday, I spoke with the chairman, CEO of OLAMS for African Middle East, Shri. He was of the view that there is a need for African businesses to take advantage of opportunities in the agribusiness. And so that is one of the issues that have been discussed at this point in time. Another issue that will be raised today is how to make the business environment Africa easy in terms of the ease of doing business. Our rankings on that chart is not very, very impressive, as we all know that we need to create environments for African economies, African businesses to thrive, and that means putting in place the necessary policies, putting in place the various infrastructure, the information technology that will drive businesses on the continent. Also today, we will be looking at how to provide sources of finances for African businesses. The president of the Africa Development Bank was speaking, Donald Kaberuka, is saying that that is one area that African businesses are still having quite some challenges. They do not know how to access financing, and so it is affecting the results, the output that they put to the world at the end of the day. The issue of urban explosion will also be discussed today. We all know that there is a growing population in Africa. I was trying to tell you the other time when we were on the show about us living in Lagos. Or rather living in Ogun State and working in Lagos. A lot of people are migrating to the nearest states that will provide the land, that provide the infrastructure for them to be able to live. And so a whole lot of issues are on the table, and we're keeping our eyes on how the events will unfold. Bolson?
Okay, Bolaji, hanging in a little bit, you find very interesting part of that. You talked about the mega cities across Africa. But very interesting that a few African countries are building new city, as it were. Egypt is building a new one. That means there's a congestion. They're worried about what happens in Cairo, so they're building another almost $38 billion new city. Perhaps Lagos would need another one. That's a discussion for another day. But let's return very quickly to Dr. Donald Kaberuka's statement, the president of the African Development Bank, and he said that the period of prosperity is over for most of Africa, and quote him, "We realize that untoward winds are blowing on the world economy." But quite to be frank, he says he was optimistic about Africa moving forward. Was this a concern at this event that the Africa's period of prosperity is almost over?
If I could just make reference to its opening remark, let me just quickly run through some statements for you. It was that there's been a fundamental change in thinking in recent years as African governments realize the centrality of the role of the private sector in generating more businesses. Of course, we have to move. There is a paradigm shift at this point in time. Gone are the days where We all depend on the government to provide the funding. Well, we all depend on the government to, to lead us, so to speak. Apart from the fact that they have to create the policies needed for driving businesses on the continent, it is time for the private sector to step in and ensure that they run the show. There is a need for the private sector to take the helm of affairs, as it were, and ensure that they create the needed change. They are the catalyst for change, really, Wilson. They are the catalyst for change in moving the economies forward. Yes, there will be challenges. We have the insecurity issue in some parts of Africa, and that is bringing up. Nigeria is not excluded. We all know what's going on in the northeast. However, there is a need for the private sector to move in, even in the midst of crisis. Warren Buffett there's a popular quote from him to say that when there is crisis, it's a time to move in. When everyone is running away from a particular area, it's a time for business leaders to step in and say, we will plant our seed, we will take advantage of the opportunities that actually are on the continent of Africa. Wilson.
Okay, Bolaji Akinwale, we thank you for joining us this morning and for those insights into what's taking place at the event. We know today is very busy for you, so we need to allow you to get back to those CEOs and see how much of those conversations.
Just one more thing before I go. So just to let you know that the Prime Minister of Cote d'Ivoire is here. Prime Minister Daniel Duncan is actually here to see how we can attract investors into his country. Not many African leaders. As a matter of fact, there is the only African leader here in terms of the president. Is the only one here represented here. And I think African leaders should take advantage of platforms like this to come and woo investors. Of course, we all know we're trying all we can in Nigeria to see how to bring investment into the country. But African leaders need to lead the pack. They need to lead others and send the message out there that we are ready. We are ready for change, for transformation. We are ready to move our economies to the next level. Wilson.
Okay, Bolaji, thank you very much. We're sure the Ivorian president is very pleased to be there as a special guest of that event. Of course, his country is now the headquarters for African Development Bank after leaving that country some years ago at the height of the civil war down there. Bolaji, thank you very much. Do have a great day and, of course, a safe flight back to Nigeria. Okay, let's wrap up the show, but just about 1 minute with Harriet here to give a bit of a shape to some of the conversations we've had. I'm sure you will be concerned. Most people, the language of family business is a language that most of us understand. It's a language most of us speak, because let's look at Nigeria, which is our home base. No, yes, our home base. It's what we see everywhere. Most of the small and medium-scale enterprises that we see are mostly family-based, because we know that it doesn't really take so much to have a business. It's less formal, it's less institutionalized, and we do not have so much issues with corporate governance. Now we have the mother-father probably starting out an enterprise, and they have a great vision, they're forward-looking, but they do not have the rest of the family towing the same line. And so what do you have? You have such businesses being short-lived. Because as soon as maybe the father dies or the mother dies, the business dies off. Because the children do not understand the mechanics. They don't understand the vision. They don't understand the mission. The spirit. Well, perhaps they just want to play music or play football. Exactly. And so we have a lot of that happening. And that means that we're not going to have so many businesses in Africa, family businesses that is, thriving. I wanted to quickly just, run you through a couple of some that I found. Forbes actually did a list last year. And we see that the top was actually from Nigeria, Moshood, late Nigerian business mogul Moshood Abiola. Now, he was considered as one of the biggest business magnates at the time before he died. Now, we had Abiola Farms, we had bookshops, we had Radio Communications Nigeria, we had Wonder Bakeries, Concord Press, Concord Airline, Bosun, stop me if you remember if anyone is still in existence at this time, Africa Ocean Lines, Summit Oil International Limited, Abiola Football Club. A group of companies, a conglomerate as it were. As it were. But today, hardly remembered. So that's just what I'm trying to say. Not a lot of, family members actually toe the same line. They don't have the same dream, vision, or mission as the starters. Only a few, sorry to cut in there, because of time we'll try to compress this, but I'm sure this is a conversation we'll continue another day. We need to sit down perhaps to any of these folks and try to get a sense of that. Thank you very much. We'll talk about that movie. A few that have survived for a few, perhaps one or two bands
Okay.
that have all that. But let's talk about something else that will coming up tomorrow. Harriet Agbeyi, I should say thank you before you leave.
Thank you,
I shouldn't forget that. Okay, that's all we got time for today on the show. I am Bosun Amopaye. Tomorrow is Wednesday, the 18th, and the Federal Allocations Committee on FARC will meet to deliberate on the sharing of revenue among all arms of the government. But the key question we'll be asking, how much was there to share? We're back at 10 in the morning, 24 hours from now. Okay, News Track is at the top of the hour here on Channels Television. Bye for now.